She was like, she's not telling me the truth. I was like,
Okay, folks, if we can have your attention, we will begin. And you're all very welcome to the launch of the excellently titled, I think we'll all agree, Count Me Out, the selected writings of Bob Quinn. And when Toner suggested to me last year that he was putting this book together, I said, that is fantastic news. And I said, can we please have the event in here? And he said, absolutely. So we are delighted to be hosting this event here this evening. So you're all very welcome. Bob has been a great friend to the shop, and we've had many events here over the years that featured him in one way or another, and we're delighted to be and tonight I hope will be no exception. And I just want to first of all welcome you all, and I think this is a significant event. Bob is one of the great provocateurs of modern Ireland, and a man who's played a very significant role in the artistic and cultural life of this country. And there has hardly been an argument and an incident or an issue that Bob hasn't had a strong opinion, and as we know, he likes to voice that strong opinion. So we're delighted for that reason as well, because it's an important book. You know, it's an important thing to recognise the voice that is contrary to all of the other voices that we hear all the time. And more of that really is what's required, and the book is a kind of a celebration of that impulse. So I just want to introduce you now to Stephen Ray, who is a person that really needs no introduction, and not because he's not here. He is here, and we're delighted. We're delighted to have him. Stephen's career has been very varied, and over the years, when new films and plays have come to town and people are discussing whether they'll go or not, and then the line, and Stephen Ray is in it, is usually enough for people to make up their minds that indeed this is what we have to do, we'll have to go to that. So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Stephen Ray.
It's extraordinary to be here. This is one of the great founders of our thinking in modern Ireland, it seems to me, and when they asked me to come here, I could not refuse. Before I go on to talk about Bob, I just want to, one of the people I hope that we hear is Catherine Connolly, because she's a very significant person in Dáil Éireann. I was deeply moved by her response to Simon Harris' tea shop when she said, I hope you have a good time, but I just want to tell you I won't be voting for you because you insist on treating the Irish people as if they weren't citizens of a republic. And I thought that was magnificent. And there's a job coming up as with Dawn sometime.
You should do it. You should vibrate.
So, sorry, Bob, for it's an incredible honour to be asked to launch Count Me Out, selected writings of filmmaker Bob Quinn. Personally, I can say that every time I've met Bob, he was always aware that he really valued creative people and honoured me as an actor by including me in that circle. There's a very sympathetic chapter in this book about Donald McCann, which also includes me. Why aren't you a Hollywood idol? I once asked Donald McCann. He said he never wanted to be a star, but he was human when he saw signs of his old comrade Stephen Ray wasn't becoming a star. 20 years ago, he set alight the newspaper in which Stephen was immersed in a hotel in Cairo. But I just want to say what Donald actually did was set fire to the tail of my shirt. And it was a very lovely shirt. All checked and Bob Quinn was always his own person, a man who was willing to stand out when everyone else was trying to fit in. Reading this book, it's remarkable how far ahead of his time he was. Way back in 1969, he was active in the setting up of a pirate radio station in Conamara, which lit the fuse behind what became the hugely successful Radio na Gaeltacht subsequent. His 1978 film, Poitín, was the first short film feature shot in the Irish language, following up from his incredibly innovative film of Caoineadh Airt Uí Laoire, 1975, a version of the greatest single poem in the language. Bob explains in the book what he was seeking to achieve in Poitín. My neighbours, including the cast of the film, were a little bewildered by my quite unconscious use of Brechtian alienation techniques. This was a pragmatic solution to the problem of using an all-amateur cast. I needed to creep up on and defuse the audience, and diffuse their prejudices against both amateurs and the Irish language. I did this by using authentic native speakers rather than urban Gaeltacht, and scripted it accordingly as an amateur rehearsal with roughly dramatic reenactments. It worked very well because it offended the proper targets. RTE, Irish Times, D4. When it was shown at the Savoy Cinema in the Cork Film Festival, actors Neil Turbine and Donald McCann happened to be seated behind me. At the end, Neil tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Quinn, you're a clever whore." That was as fine a compliment as I could get. Bob had immense courage to leave a steady job in RTE in the late 1960s because he felt that the station was selling its soul to a crash commercial agenda. Bob was never an apple licker at a time when Ireland was full of apple lickers, in the cutting phrase of sean-nós. If tempted by Satan, an Irish Adam would at most have given the apple a cautious lick. Bob knew he was a snob in Iasa, but that never stopped him climbing up that Stercorian waterfall. That was followed by his move to live in Conamara, where he still lives in Turin and Hochrúil. In one of his many eloquent passages in this book, he offers this hymn of praise to his adopted home. I found South Conamara to be full of people who didn't read the Irish Times, but knew Boston and London intimately, who weren't obsessed with the media. had no interest in the gossip from Dublin 4, but knew their local politicians' every move as intimately as they knew every rock and field around them. The 40 ways to cut turf, the lines of a boat, their neighbour's business, the weather in the sky. They also knew how to work the system. They were and are the largest bilingual community on the island. They were as much at home on the sea as on the land, and their popular music was a weird, unaccompanied singing which bore more resemblance to a mullah's call to prayer than to the Beatles. They still lived close to each other, still walked the same roads, went to the same funerals and weddings, and sailed in the same races. Conamara and its people couldn't possibly fit into the narrow, puritanical, timid suburban island of the Ireland I knew. A parish priest confided in me that his parishioners weren't like us. They were more like pagans, he said. This cheered me up greatly. Their behaviour displayed a freedom of action and independence of mind, not to mention an initiative that I was not accustomed to. For a start, they were more widely travelled than any comparable group on this island. As a community, they knew Boston, Chicago, London, Huddersfield more intimately than Dublin, possibly even than Galway. They didn't emigrate. They simply went to their extended family, uncles, aunts, older brothers and sisters, grannies and granddads who had carved out a space for themselves amidst alien corn. Bob also has a terrific sense of humour. Here's a little anecdote he shares about recording a song in Galway. I even remember the song Memoir, otherwise known as Danny Boy. It was sung by Caoineadh Airt, acted by a beautiful model named Dolly Sheridan, whom I was trying unsuccessfully to seduce. Her excuse for resisting me was that she had coward's legs, an alibi she admitted getting from Spike Milligan's novel Book When we got back to the station and hurriedly began to edit the shots together for a live program, the editor called my attention to a donkey in the scene. The brute was not only boasted a monstrous head, sickening cry, and ears like errant wings, but also a proud erection. The donkey's exuberance meant a hasty abbreviation of imagery for the musical item. Bob also had an ear for vivid phrase, as this in this anecdote about the sculptor James McKenna. Every day a postman observed the sculptor working on a stone in a field. When the final figure was revealed, the postman asked the sculptor, "How did you know she was in there?" And Bob Quinn was way ahead of his time. Consider this passage which reflects on the nature of the island people and their natural disposition to cosmopolitanism. This take on our history offers a generous and inclusive vision of what our people could be at our best. Ireland is an island with a deeply indented coastline. Historically, an endless insular coastline means it has been open to every influence under the sun. Be it Gaelic tribes, Barbary pirates, Vikings, Normans, Tudors, Arab whalers, Huguenots, Palatines, Italian postmen, Welsh mercenaries, Scottish gallowglasses, megalithic Argonauts, seeds from the Caribbean, American PhDs, multinationals, German fence erectors, Coptic monks, Quaker do-gooders, Roman missionaries, Spanish armadas, and Russian trawlers. The island is like a circle, a defined enclosure with an infinity of external contacts. I first got that perception in Conamara, and I found it very liberating. It lifted a veil from this island, made it seem less narrow or cut off, more varied and interesting. It meant that we were not some tiny, homogeneous bunch of Celtic Catholic whalegoers, bravely and irrelevantly surviving on the periphery of godless Western Europe. This was how customary
we presented ourselves officially to ourselves. But neither were we a nation of poets, saints and scholars, irritable Joyceans, urbane Wildings, mad Beckettians or hairy Yeatsians in every street and pub. We were neither Celtic aristocrats nor second-hand Britons. We were, in fact, a healthy mongrel race. Now, if it's a choice between mongrel and thoroughbred, well, give me the mongrel every time. That inclusive vision of Ireland also led him to his brilliant imaginative leap where he links Conamara's vibrant sean-nós tradition to seaborne influences. I began to wonder about the strange music of the area, sean-nós singing. It's a pity the term is so imprecise. Sean-nós simply means old style. Nevertheless, the performers and their dedicated audiences know with ferocious precision what is meant by the term, an ascetic, unaccompanied form of solo singing that at its best has not succumbed to the emotional sogginess of pop music. It may not be too much to claim that whoever can be moved by the writing of Samuel Beckett has the capacity to enjoy sean-nós singing. In it, passion is pared away to reveal the extraordinary courage at the heart of the human being. Describing the most heart-rending events in song, an intelligent performer's face will betray not one wisp of emotion. This singing in Conamara defies comparison with the drawing room tradition and its sentimental offspring. There are no dramatic high notes, no hushed tones, and no build-up to a pyrotechnical climax. Instead, the good singer will concentrate on minuscule decoration. Conamara people stated that it could be learned, but it could not be taught. One would have to apprentice oneself to a singer and simply listen for years before acquiring the words, melodies, or styles of ornamentations. Well, as you can hear from these extracts, this is a lively, uniquely readable book. I totally loved reading it, and I must commend Toner Quinn for stitching these pieces into a coherent fabric. I also commend Bolishka from Anspedale for the handsome job they have done in the publication. I am delighted and honoured to have had the opportunity to come down to Galway to launch Caoineadh Airt by filmmaker Bob Quinn. Now is for all of you to buy it.
Brilliant, Stephen. Thank you very much. We're going to hear from Bob himself now. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to have the launch of this here is that Bob has been a frequent offender at various launches that we've had here over the years. There was one, the great journal Force 10 that Dermot Healy used to run out of Sligo in the 1990s. Bob had guest editorship of one of the issues, and one day we were chatting, and I showed him this letter that a doctor friend of mine in Devon, he came across a letter in a book that was kind of unpublished, and it was a letter from the lighthouse keeper, the man in charge of the lighthouse keepers, about having to deal with Brendan Behan and the difficulties thereof. It's framed and it's down the back there, you can have a look at it later. And Bob said, "That's great, I have my cover." So he put the letter on the cover of the magazine. I said, "Oh, this guy's quite something." Then we had a launch of Bob's own book, Atlantean, which was it was one of those legendary nights where the room was absolutely jam-packed and full of people from Bob's friends from Conamara who came into town, and they decided if they were going to come into town, they were going to make it count. It was a long and involved night, and Michael D launched the book on that occasion, and I think it took Michael D about 30 seconds to get to an incredible pitch of indignation about the combined academic structures who didn't agree with Bob. And it was a wonderful event, and everybody at the end of it said, "Oh, it was fantastic." Even only the dogs could hear Michael at the end of it. It was one of the best nights we ever had here. It was just great. And it went on and on, for days in some cases. So it was a great event. And another event that Bob did not so long ago was the launch of Desmond Fennell's last book here a couple of years ago. And I'm delighted to see Kate and Oisin here this evening as well. And that was a very memorable evening as well. Two aging prize fighters, I think is how it's circling each other, proper contrarians. And a wonderful event that was too. So hopefully we'll be able to add this fourth one onto those three memorable nights. Please welcome Bob Quinn.